Hello and welcome. I'm Jennifer from Joy of Stationery, and what I wanted to do today is to give a little bit of an update, a September update. It would have been a mid-month update, but we are a little bit past the mid-month mark. September is going by much more quickly than I had anticipated, but that could be said for really any of the months this year as a whole. So here we are. We've really only got about a week left of September, but I wanted to give a little bit of an update nonetheless. And part of this update is towards thinking about how I would like for my lineup to be in October and beyond, thinking about the next month, but also for the next quarter 3, and just to give a little bit of sense of where I've been in terms of my planning and my journaling. So I want to begin just with a little preface that September has been a difficult month for me, particularly in terms of my health. This is a long-term sort of thing, but there are ways in which it has been particularly difficult this month. Part of what also makes this hard is that it does tend to affect my planning. So in the same way that sometimes you make certain kinds of plans and believe that you've got a rhythm to things, certain things that you're scheduling in, things to plan for, life can get in the way. And sometimes in life, one of those things can be something like illness and other kinds of things that one may not necessarily be able to expect, but that happen. And part of what the challenge is learning how to sort of roll with it, how to be able to return to your planning and journaling rituals and be flexible enough for some things to change. So one of the things that has been really helpful this month, however, is that despite some of the difficulties with my health and the obstacles that come with that, I have had an opportunity to discover more uses to planners, or specifically to think more carefully about certain kinds of planning that might require their own planners, for example. So this has also actually been a month, because it's pretty much Hobonichi month and Hobonichi season still, that I have really fallen in love with the Hobonichi weeks. So you can see on my desk here that I do have 3 laid out. 2 of them are, well, 2 of them are ones that I'd had before. This is a January start that I'd gotten at the end of last year to start for 2023, and I have spoken to this one. This is the Mon Oncle weeks in some previous videos. This one is a spring start weeks. This is the botanical one that was released in the spring from Hobonichi, the 2023 spring release. And this one is also a spring start, also a 2023 spring start. This is the Champagne Gold paper weeks, along with this beautiful cover on cover that was part of the 2023 release as well. But this is a very recent addition to my collection and to my planning. And this is because I was able to find this discounted at a local or regional store, a regional stockist. And I was thinking about ways to do some really specialized planning for one particular big project that will be a multi-year project, but requires space so that I can dedicate more attention and effort to it. And so I thought that getting a spring start that was also discounted would be a really great way to start trying this out and That way, I can also look ahead to 2024 and how I might want to continue work on this particular project in the way that I'm planning for it. And again, this gives me the rest of the year to experiment with different things. And I have actually really been loving this. So, like I said, I've fallen in love with the Hobonichi weeks. My planning system, let me just put this out of the way really quickly, but I'll get back to this. My planning system has still consisted, planning and journaling, consisted primarily of the Hobonichi weeks and the A6 size. Sorry, this is the field notes, but the field notes I use alongside the Hobonichi A6 avec. And I do still have the Hobonichi a 5-day free that I'm using. It's a little bit less of a daily planner. I usually spend the weekends on that particular memory keeper and backfill it. So I just don't have it in this particular spread that you see in front of you right now, but it still is very much a part of my system. But I just wanted to kind of speak to the ones that I'm picking up on a day-by-day basis. So here I have the weeks, as I mentioned, and I'll speak to what I'm using each of these for. So this was the one that I'd first gotten for the entirety of the calendar year 2023. And this was the weeks that I had intended for use for work and primarily my writing and research projects. I had discovered a way to really make this work for me, and I speak to that in a previous video where I keep track of my ongoing projects that I have on the right-hand side and do a kind of day theming and project-specific milestones that I keep track of on the left-hand side horizontal weeks layout. So this is something that is still going on, and in that sense, it has become more of a work planner or a way to keep track of all of my ongoing work-related things. And work for me as an academic consists of a number of different areas, and not only the university that I work at, but also other institutions, other collaborations that I need to keep track of all together as part of my career path. And so having ongoing projects, not just for the university, but for everything else as well, has been really helpful to kind of keep track of in this week's. This one then is the one, and I think I spoke to this in a previous video, that I have been using for personal reasons. And so this is a week's that I have been using in order to keep track of my health and my health recovery. There are still things that I'm experimenting with in here on a week-by-week basis in terms of the layout and the spread, but I have found it really helpful, especially coming to a point of crisis in my health, to have a dedicated space for that. So if I have this beautiful weeks that I'm using for work, there isn't room in here for sort of personal things as well as health-related things, recovery. I want to keep those things separate, just for compartmentalizing in a way that I think that I need at this moment. And this is where this particular week's comes in. I've been doing fun things with this, like for the monthly then, doing a sort of quick sort of couple of words or phrase using a stencil, the Muji stencil that I spoke so much about in a previous video that I've really been enjoying. And I've been using that to kind of fill in these days on the monthly calendar, but that's actually helped me to remember a particular highlight of the day or something that sort of defined the day for me. I try to make this about something more recovery or personal related, but sometimes work will infiltrate a little bit in here as well, because some days ended up being a little bit more defined by work, but nonetheless, it has been a really fun way to keep track of my days and also to, in some ways, prioritize or give focus and dedicated attention to my personal life and my health. What is also really, really great about this particular week's is that I have been using the notes pages then as an extended journal. And I'll show a clip that I filmed separately of just a little bit of a flip through. Many things in the journal, of course, are personal, and so I tried to do it at an angle where there isn't too much sensitive information that's necessarily revealed, but then you can still see some of the layout of the pages, because I've also really loved using some washi tape stickers, as well as washi tape itself to decorate some of the pages that I journal in, and it's made the journaling and reflecting and recollections a really sort of beautiful space that I've been enjoying quite a bit. So I will be showing that as part of this video, but it is sort of a separate filming. And then finally, we get to this newest week's. And again, I had gotten this 2023 Spring Start Weeks discounted at a regional stockist, Hobonichi stockist. And along with this absolutely beautiful cover on cover that I've just never been able to use for the weeks yet, because I didn't have any sort of solid color weeks that this could go over and work really well with. And so now I am just so delighted to have this as just another really beautiful techo that I love to look at and love to hold. And so it was really important for me to begin to give some major attention to my biggest project, which is an academic book. And there is so much planning that this project requires, and yet what ends up happening, particularly in my sort of work planner or projects planner, is that other kinds of deadlines, other kinds of responsibilities will often have a kind of seeming urgency that might take away from a focus, a more dedicated focus on the academic book as a project. So this has been really, really wonderful as a space that I am dedicating and kind of investing in myself and in my future goal of writing and publishing an academic book. And it's given me the space also to not just have to share room and page real estate, I guess, in the way that it does in the work planner, but here I can really dedicate it to all the steps of the book. And it has been really, really lovely to have this available. Because I'm starting it in September, I've been able to use some of the front pages, the weekly spreads that I have not used because they are from earlier in the year, as spaces to put some reference notes. And so there are some notes that I had that I was using in a traveler's notebook actually, but that I started to paste in and therefore kind of have this as reference as I go through this planner and the project planning that's required of the book. And I have really loved it. So being able to kind of front load some crucial foundational information and guidance and advice and tips, something I can always go back to. Then in September, starting to use the weeks, and this time being able to create columns and a layout where I can write in how much time per day am I dedicating to furthering the book project, what are the specific tasks that are book related that I am attempting to do that day, what am I sort of waiting on, what are some of the next steps to take. So all these kinds of things, as well as taking notes on various book related topics. So it can be on the content of my academic book itself, but also about writing itself and the process of writing an academic book and ways to sustain a healthy writing practice. And this is something that's also important to me because of the way that having to be much more mindful of my health and of the disabling effects of illness has slowed me down in a lot of ways. So how to sort of account for that and how to almost relearn what it is to think about and begin to plan for a certain kind of writing ritual. So this has been really, really lovely in that regard. I am still using my Hobonichi A6 avec. As you can see, it is currently not housed in anything, and this is because I was trying it out with some different covers. I am in the process of thinking about my 2024 lineup, as well as what my lineup might look like for October, and I'll have sort of an October setup video at the beginning of next month. And so I was trying it out in different covers, and that's why it's sort of not currently housed, but I am using it on a daily basis still. It has evolved to primarily being about the celebration, or again, little wins journaling, where I keep track of what I was able to do that day, and that has mattered a lot to me in terms of my health, but it also has been a way to also log my symptoms. So how, if I do have some kind of health crash or other kinds of symptoms, I have a space to keep track of that on a day-to-day basis. Here is my trusty field notes, and I have been using this as I have before, with little bits of journaling here and there, but also occasionally some bullet journaling. If I feel like I just kind of need that space to be able to do some bullet journaling and just get all my tasks down, or notes, things that I need to kind of remember, this is always a space I can turn to. And I keep it together, of course, in a Hobonichi A6 cover, just because it fits so perfectly. And it's just nice to know that I always have this as sort of a dependable and flexible notebook space to return to. And then I did want to show, this is the new 2024 release Little Gifts cover. Very cute. This is in the A6 size. And this actually came much earlier than my Hobonichi haul, because I had ordered this from a regional stockist, and so it was able to come much more quickly. So this was one of the first covers that I actually received, and so I wanted to sort of put it to use right away. And I'm really glad to have been able to find a use for it, because I have been keeping this Hobonichi plain notebook as a journal since last year. This was actually released the year before. This is, I believe this is the Season of Hope plain notebook. I could be wrong. It's either Season of Hope or Wish Upon a Star, but I think that Wish Upon a Star was the name of the cover-on-cover design by the same artist. But I had been holding on to these beautiful notebooks and started this last year last fall actually as a kind of journal. And I picked it up again. Glad that I still have it, and I just thought it was sort of the perfect notebook to fit into this cover. There's something about kind of the black background and the colorful design laid upon the darker background, and so it's been a joy to come back to that notebook and to see it housed in this. And sometimes I feel like doing that kind of personal journaling in an A6 size. Sometimes I feel like doing that kind of personal journaling, maybe that's more health related, in a week size. But I now have both of those spaces available, and I do use both of them. So finally, I just wanted to speak to something that I hope that October will help me figure out, and that is how to come back to incorporating more regularly the traveler's notebook system in what is a very robustly Hobonichi system. Hobonichi is what I gravitate towards for planning, just because I find the pages, the layouts, and the paper to be so good, so conducive to clarity of planning, and flexible enough to experiment with different layouts and, different things to keep track of. While the traveler's notebook, and I was speaking to a really good friend about this, it's such a different system, and I've found that it might not be the planning system that I need, because Hobonichi fills that need already, but there's a way in which it maybe cultivates more creativity. And I love the Traveler's Notebook system. I love Traveler's Notebooks. And I also now have a few Traveler's Notebooks here and there that are not from the Traveler's Company, but from other leather artisans. And so this one actually is what I'm hoping will be a new project, because I love new projects. And this is a beautiful, technically passport-sized traveler's notebook style cover. This is made by Lacau, and this was one that they had available as ready to ship. So it wasn't something that I had requested in terms of customizations, but when I saw it advertised, I really loved it for some reason. So it is basically this sort of dark green, which I think is actually the peacock green, against the dark night leather. And I'm forgetting what the name of the red leather is. It might be something like wild cherry. And so and it has sort of pockets on the back and the front, as you can see. And I actually, these are some patches that I've kept in here because I knew I wanted to customize this. And you can see there are two pockets, full-size pockets here, and these smaller, more secretarial pockets, one in red and one in green, just like the other side of the cover. And when I saw the colors red and green, I really loved it, and it made me think of a rose garden. And so I looked up some patches on Etsy, and I found these beautiful ones, and I will try to link them below. These beautiful rose patches, and I was debating whether to put this one or the other one in the front, but you can see that I ended up choosing this one with the double roses here. But I just fell in love with them, and I felt like this would make for just a really beautiful sort of rose themed, or like rose garden themed traveler's notebook cover. And I love the passport size so much. I don't know quite yet how I'd like to configure this or set this up, But, you know, I've just put this beautiful patch on. As I've mentioned before, I get very excited about patches ever since I started doing, doing some decorating with patches in July. And I just think this looks so beautiful now. And I would love to use this for the rest of fall and come winter, like a beautiful sort of Christmas rose type of design. So in any case, this is something that brings me joy. Again, I've not quite incorporated this into my planning and journaling setups just yet, but I wanted to introduce this just because it is on my mind, you know, planning on how I want to plan, right? Planning on how I want to plan and how I want to journal and what I would like for my lineup to look like as we move into Q3, as we move more deeply into fall and winter, so the colder months. And this just looked really sort of cozy to me. So in any case, I just wanted to give a little bit of an update. I hope that this was interesting at the very least. These are things that I'm just sort of working through right now, especially during a really challenging month, but my planners and stationery and notebooks really bring a smile to my face that help me, and it helps me to look more forward to the months ahead in the hopes that, you know, there is progress that will be made, more recovery, and of course more ways that I can then really get into the kind of planning and journaling that I really enjoy. I hope that everyone is doing okay, and I'm excited to start getting into October as well. I always feel like a new month feels a little bit like a new start, and that's why I think I like beginning to think about my different techos in light of, oh, you know, what do I want for my primary lineup for the beginning of the month? Do I want to sort of do something to theme it? Other kinds of ways that I can make planning and journaling even more fun for myself. So in any case, I hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.